Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. It is so great to be here. My name is Anthony DiUlio. Most people call me Tony. I am an attorney who's been putting on this series of training videos free online for the industry when it comes to first-party property claims. And really excited to do these. We've started doing them every first Friday so that there's really no confusion about when it is. If you want to make sure you get your notices, please be sure to go to our website at wdblegal.com and put your name in the registry. You'll get a little pop-up to be kept up to date. But we're here today for the second part of our commercial claims series. The commercial claims series is really focused on commercial business properties, the insurance policies that you deal with those, and when it comes to actually handling, presenting those claims, issues that come up, we get to talk about all of that. And this week I'm really excited because we're going to dive into some of that claim presentation stuff and really start to hit some of the nitty-gritty for the claims presentation. As always, there is a live chat that goes on with these presentations. I really would love it if you use those. One of the benefits of actually being here live isn't just to get to see my lovely face, but to get live communication so that I can answer your questions whenever they come up. As you know, when you sign up for these webinars, you can also post questions and I make promises. Even if it's unrelated to this, to the topic that we're talking about, I will address everybody's questions to the best of my ability. So if you've got them, throw them in there. We've got a good series today, so stick around because there's some really great questions at the end. In fact, one of them from Mr. Muma, who just had his first hello there on the side for the chat. So we'll be sure to address all of those. Let's dive in. One other thing I want feedback on, if you guys, I'd love to hear it. We've done this presentation 3 different ways now. The first, I was kind of a newscaster with a screen on the side. The second had a side-by-side where you get to see me on half of the screen and the text on the other. And last time, and this one, I am doing a presentation that I'm nice and small, so you don't have to look at my ugly mug the whole time. You can really focus on the information. I'd love some feedback to see if you've got a preference as to which one you think works best. I've got this information at the beginning and the end, but I would highly recommend you take it down. Has my personal cell phone, my email address, obviously, and my office phone number, but it's got my personal cell on there. I don't give that out lightly. So if you do need to contact me, please feel free to reach out. Something that I tell every time I talk, I recognize I'm busy. I try to get back to people to the best of my ability, but it is absolutely one of my weaknesses. I recognize that. I'm trying to work on issues with the office to get that resolved, so that if you do reach out to me, you have permission to bug me. If I don't get back to you, just text me, say, hey, Tony, just following up on the text before. I absolutely will always do my best to ultimately get back to you when I can. So grab that information and we'll dive into this. Before we get started, there are some changes that are coming to New Jersey. For those who don't know, there's a new bill that is getting passed. I'm involved in a number of organizations, one of them being MAPIA, which is the Mid-Atlantic Public Insurance Adjusters Association. If you work in New Jersey, I would highly recommend you come to this meeting on June 20th. I've actually got, see if this works or is worth it, popping up a QR code there up in the top left corner. You can scan it and register for the meeting. We're going to be breaking down the changes. It's going to focus a lot on your contracts. So if you are not aware of this legislation, if you don't know what it means for you as a public adjuster, please be sure to get that information, whether it be from me at this meeting or otherwise. It is critical that you are aware of those changes so that you make sure you are always in compliance. So I won't spend too much more time on that, but that QR code is up there for you to sign up. All right, so let's keep going with this. With these today, we're going to go through some really critical aspects of commercial claims presentations. As I said last time with commercial claims, there are some significant differences when it comes to a commercial claim versus your standard residential loss that people handle. And when it comes to these commercial claims, people can get intimidated and they don't even want to break into that market because they think that, oh, these are large losses, there's going to be more involved. I don't want that kind of responsibility. The truth is, they are large losses and there is a lot involved, but it isn't anything that is insurmountable. And you're going to recognize, especially through some of this presentation, oh, I'm doing a lot of this for my residential claims. I can have that process transfer over when it comes to commercial claims too. So yeah, maybe I should start focusing a little bit more on commercial losses. So we'll talk about documenting those commercial claims. We'll talk about some common issues that I see over and over with commercial claims. Spoiler alert, a lot of those problems are the same I see on residential claims. And we're going to talk about presenting that information to carriers and what we see over and over as being the best options for how those claims go well. Again, I want to reiterate, have any questions, please feel free to talk about it. Last time, if you didn't take a look at the last video, we went over the policy itself for commercial policies, breakdowns of reviewing that, because it definitely, one of the biggest differences with commercial claims is the complexities and depth of the policies themselves. While they use a lot of standard forms, those forms are mixed and matched very differently for every commercial policy, and it does involve really a better understanding of those policies and how to review them. We went through some of the biggest differences that you're going to see with commercial policies and residential policies. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that video, I would recommend going back and taking a look. For those who don't know who I am, I'll breeze through this because I think a lot of you do. If you're on here, you know probably who I am, but my name is Anthony DiUlio. I own and operate Wheeler, DiUlio, and Barnaby with my partner Mario. We are focused entirely on property damage litigation. 95% of our claims involve first-party insurance losses, suing the state farms, the Allstates of the world, and we do this all the time. Thousands of claims I've handled through litigation, which means I see the worst of the worst. Right? I don't get the easy claims because those get resolved. I deal with all of the problems. I reiterate one other thing all the time. I don't want you to have to send me work. The The reason I do these videos is because I want to make this industry better as a whole, both when it comes to public adjusters, third parties, or in-house adjusters. Everybody should have the same goal, getting to the right answer for a claim, paying for what is covered and not paying for what isn't covered. So if we all kind of recognize that we are all here as an industry for the benefit of the insured, I think we can really make this world and this industry a whole lot better. I've worked all over the country at this point. I'm licensed in a whole bunch of states, but I'm really available anywhere, given, of course, the correct criteria. Here's my disclaimer. I'm brushing through all this quickly. All policies are different. Reviewing them, they're all, all unique. Make sure you read the policy, RTFP, and talk to qualified attorneys when you have questions, because no two claims or policies are exactly alike. So make sure you recognize that. This is not intended to be any kind of legal advice or all-inclusive guide. This is just a helpful video for people in this industry. All right. With the commercial claims, everybody, I want you to remember something really, really important. I want you to remember to kiss. I know it might sound crazy, but that is the key to so many claims adjustment problems. All you have to do is kiss. No, I don't mean this kiss. Might be what you first thought of. But that's not the one. No, my kiss is a little more specific. Keep it simple, stupid. These don't need to be overly complicated. You can have a process set in place that really keeps it simple for how you are documenting your claims, how you are presenting those claims, and ultimately how you're making sure that your insureds are getting what they paid for with their policies when those claims are supposed to be covered. So always be thinking about KISS. So how do we do that? There's a few things that you should recognize. People like to work less. So you should always keep a mindset, especially in commercial claims, of the fact that the carrier's adjusters are overworked. They've got too many files. That anything you can do to make their job easier, great. Number two, your reputation will often dictate the trust that you receive from the carrier. Now, this is not always going to be the case, of course, but if you have a good reputation as an honest adjuster who isn't inflating estimates, who isn't over-presenting claims, you will realize that adjusters will be pretty easy to convince to say, hey, here's my documentation. We've worked together for a long time. You can trust me. And they're going to trust that. And they should if you have that proper reputation doing the right thing. There's an important fact here. People trust verbal words 5% of the time, written words 15%, photos 70%, videos 80%, and even firsthand experience is only trusted 90% of the time. Also note that 73.4% of all statistics are made up, including this one. But the point of it is worth remembering. Yes, I made up all of those numbers, but the idea I believe in wholeheartedly. If you just say something to an adjuster, you've got a pretty small percentage chance of them believing it. If you put it in writing, that chance doesn't go up very much. Your words aren't proof. You need something to substantiate it. And the whole goal with these claims, whether it be commercial or otherwise, is to show and document why what you are saying is true. It's not enough that you just say that the flat roof sustained wind damage, thus the interior water damage is covered. You need to show them. Show them with photos, show them with documents, show them with evidence beyond just what you are saying, and your claims will go a lot more smoothly across the board. So always, always remember, documenting your claims is critical. All right, this slide's got a whole lot of information on it, but it's important stuff. So how does all of this translate to documenting a commercial claim? There's really three stages of a claim process. And it is bookended bookends the inspection. So first and foremost, before the inspection with the carrier, you want to get your ducks in a row. You need to make sure that you've done everything you can to document, prove, and otherwise have evidence for your carrier to review by the time they get out there. What does that mean? Having your estimate ready is a great first step. Having an engineering report for these commercial losses is absolutely justified to get them out there and support your position. one thing you need to recognize is if you have these proofs when you go out to the property and are ready for it with the when they come out to inspect, you're going to be able to take steps down the road that make your life easier that we're about to talk about. So have your core samples done, have your soot testing done, have your ITEL reports done, have all of that in place before that inspection happens with the carrier, and you're going to put yourself in a much more winning position. And I recognize that this is difficult to do sometimes. Sometimes that the carrier is going to get out there really fast, and you're not going to have time to have an engineer inspect and to do all of these things. But if you create a process through your office and have the contacts necessary to understand your process, you've got an engineer who can say, hey, all right, I'm getting a call from Tony. I'll be out there in 3 days. I can get my report 3 days after that. And I've got my inspection just 1 week after I reported the claim. That's a pretty good timeline. And you can work with that so that when the adjuster is reviewing the loss during the inspection and you've got these proofs, you're answering their questions before they even come up, right? Well, how do we know that this roof was wind damaged? Good thing you asked. I actually had a roofer come out. They documented their inspection through photographs and actually even a video showing where the wind damage is. They put it into a narrative report. Here it is. I got that resolved. All before these issues come up. And if you can save the adjuster time where they can check off all the boxes they need to do on their end to support a claim position, you'll be way, way better off with the outcomes of your claims than if you wait until they do all of the inspections first. If you're waiting for them to get their engineer, for them to get their roofers, and for them to get their electricians and their ITELs and their EMSL reports, if you wait for them to do all of it, your outcomes aren't going to be, I think, what you're looking for all the time, because you can kind of you can dictate that narrative to make sure that you're getting to the right result. Again, that's always the goal, right? It's not, you're not making up claims. You're not putting forward stuff that isn't there. You've got documented damage and you can show it to them. So have it ready ahead of time. If you make it easier for their adjuster, you will have an easier time. Hope that's a big takeaway for you guys because it's an important one. So then what do you do at the inspection? This is one of the most important aspects of this entire presentation. So listen up. Listen up. This one's big. When you go out to present the loss, not only are you going to give them the proofs, not only are you going to try to gauge their reactions to the documents and document what they talked about, but you're going to ask them really important questions. And you're going to sit and you're going to talk to them after the inspection and say, hey, you've gotten all of these proofs. You've seen it. Do you have any concerns? Just off the bat, is there anything that stands out to you as of now that is of a concern? And they might try to give some couched answer like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at the documents. And you can say, oh, absolutely. I want you to review them. I'm more gauging your initial gut reaction on this, given what you've seen. And at some point, they're going to give you the, look, as of now, I don't have any concerns, or as of now, I don't know of any concerns. Great. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. And you're going to ask them to say, hey, what else do you think you're going to need from me? I'd like to make sure that this thing moves efficiently. Is there anything else that I'm going to be able to provide you that will help you in your claims decision process? And get that documented now. Awesome. You want some more receipts? I'll work on that. Oh, you want to make sure we get somebody out here to inspect? No problem. We'll take care of it. And you'll have kind of a checklist of things that they might need. Or they might say, I don't know yet. Okay, I really appreciate that. Let me know when you do. But all of this goes to learning as much as you possibly can about their opinions now during the inspection. Because I know what happens. I've talked to enough of you to recognize that when they're in the field, you can get them to agree with you because you've got the right side of it, right? You've got the evidence that you need. And then later on, they come back and say something that's contrary to what they said in the field. But if you go through this checklist of questions and you ask them all of the important stuff, what you're going to do next is immediately, I'm talking as soon as you get to your car, your truck, your boat, I don't care where you're going or how you're going, wherever you get to your vehicle of choice, send them a quick email. Just say, hey, thanks so much for your inspection. We talked about if there were any concerns, and you'd indicated that as of now, you don't have any. That there was nothing you could think of at this moment that would raise a concern or a red flag. So I want to make sure we're on the same page about that. You'd indicated that you're in agreement about some of these damages, X, Y, and Z things. and you're putting together an email that is based off of the conversations you've had. You're memorializing that conversation in written form. So why is that important? Because that email is going to be proof later. If you need it to say, hey, wait a second, you said in the field that X, Y, and Z was true. Now you're saying X, Y, and Z are false. What's going on there? And you've documented that conversation through that email. And you're going to end that email the way that I tell everybody to, that says, hey, if any of the above is incorrect, please let me know within the next 10 business days. Otherwise, I'll assume that it's your agreement that that all of it is accurate. That line is so important because then it puts the onus on them. Again, it gives them a timeline, and it will ultimately support the position later on if they don't respond that this is all stuff that they have, at least in some degree, agreed to one way or another. So you're going to document it through that email. You're going to set expectations with the adjuster as to timelines for things and what is needed to move forward. You should be setting your tasks then and there as to what needs to be done, and think the entire time about the efficiency of the process. You're not going to want to, sorry about that. I was trying to move my head so it's not in the way of that last line, but it didn't work. So you're going to be thinking about efficiency. Efficiencies for your claims is a key tenet to a successful business and profits. It's not that I'm saying you want to be maximizing the claim value. I do. There's people out there who have posted that they don't like that phrase, and I'm certainly one of them. But you want to be making sure your insureds are getting what they paid for and what is covered under the policy. But when it comes to owning your business, being efficient does help the bottom line. The faster that you can turn these claims over to a proper result, the better it means for your business and ultimately for your clients. All right, so we've gone through those. So how do we actually document these losses? I'm going to give you a whole list. It is not an exhaustive list. While I was exhausted when I wrote it, we're not actually getting there. So this is some of the key stuff that we are seeing over and over as good ways to make sure you document these commercial losses. And candidly, it does work with residential too, but it's really, really important in these commercial claim settings to properly document a loss. You cannot adjust a commercial claim with kind of the same, do an inspection, get an agreement, get your payment, and you're out of there. There will be more involved, so you need a good process in place. So conduct your site inspection. Well, that's a no-brainer. Photograph and videotape the damage. Well, of course, Tony, no crap. Create a detailed scope of loss. Well, yeah, that's what I'm hired for. These three, and there's going to be more coming down the road, are the most obvious things that a person can do when it comes to documenting a claim. And you're going to all say to me, of course, Tony, we're going to do those things. Well, I still have to put them in there. And do you know why? Because a shocking percentage of the time, two of these three things are missing. I know that sounds nuts, but it still happens. I still get claims from adjusters where I said, great, send me your photographs. And they said, oh, I didn't take any. The carrier was taking the photographs. And people laugh at that. They're like, no, there's no way there are public adjusters that do that. Yes, there are. So I'm going to continue to scream this from the rooftops that you should be photographing and videotaping your inspections of the property with your own camera or your own phone or however you want to do it, but get your own documentation for it. All right. Hopefully that's clear and I don't need to do it. And yes, Mike, I do know my mug is blocking some of these, so I've got to figure out how to better do that one for the future. But hopefully it doesn't block anything too critical. So other than that, what you should be doing for these claims, especially on business losses, gather and organize your invoices, receipts, proofs of purchase, all of those items for documenting the claim. It can go a long way to saving time down the road if you tell your clients immediately, as soon as you get involved, hey, get me all of your invoices and receipts that you've already gotten. If you've got proof of work that was done before, great. But organize it from the beginning so that they aren't trying to dig 4 months down the road to find this stuff. I don't know if you know this or not, but clients are far more likely to be cooperative in the beginning than they are down the road. The whole delay, deny, defend concept is based on wearing people out. And If you can get that information early on, you are far more likely to have cooperation from your clients and a better record. So say, hey, right at the beginning, get me these documents, and any documents you receive in the future, send them to me immediately so that there's no confusion about what the expectation is for this stuff. All right, then you want to get contractors' estimates. And I'm going to combine this when it comes to the Xactimate and other estimating software line here. You should be estimating your losses. That is a great value that you can add, and it's a good starting point. But if you can obtain supporting documentation from contractors, there's absolutely no reason in the world that you shouldn't. It's great to have an estimate from you. It's great to have an estimate from the carrier. But the truth is, neither one of you are actually doing the work. And if there becomes a dispute as to what the actual necessary scope of work is or what that actual cost will be, having a contractor associated with the claim, especially on commercial losses, will go worlds better for you when it comes to proving it, because you've got somebody who will actually do the work for an actual cost that can be, they can give warranties, they can support it. And that's things that you don't add. You don't necessarily do this work. There are some states where it's very common for the contractor to also have a public adjuster license, and they kind of loop it all together. And if that's allowed in your state, so be it. But ultimately, you want to have a second opinion to help support your position. It just makes it stronger. And in commercial claims, those experts, the engineers, the contractors, the electricians or content specialists, those guys have a lot of value add when it comes to commercial claims and the carrier decisions. So really, really think about it. When it comes to using Xactimate, I am constantly on the fence with whether or not it is best to use Xactimate. Carriers cannot, I want to stress this, cannot require Xactimate to be used. It is a software system that they have totally got in their pocket. While you can still use it use it appropriately, recognize that you're playing in their ball field. Not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, and it might be necessary in some situations. But when I get so frustrated when carriers say, oh, I need to get an Xactimate estimate. No, you don't. The policy doesn't require that. So if you've got contractors who are putting estimates together, that's perfectly acceptable. And candidly, in a lot of situations, it's better. So recognize it isn't something that the carriers can require. Documenting code upgrades is another huge downfall for a lot of public adjusters. Public adjusters will go in and they'll say, hey, I talked to an electrician, and code requires that this electric be upgraded or updated with the current code. Okay, that's a great thing to know. What's the code? Show it to me. You should have that information on hand as soon as you say, this is required by code. The very next thing out of your mouth should be, and that code is X, here's a copy of it. If you don't have that information, you are not doing a good service to your clients, because you absolutely should be able to document it if you're going to claim that it's required by code. Carriers often will come back and say, oh, well, that's not being enforced, so I'm not going to require that, or I'm not paying for that code because they're not going to enforce it. And you're going to say a line that I've said before, oh, so I only have to go the speed limit if a police officer's behind me? No, of course not. It's a ridiculous statement to say, because one code official you think isn't going to enforce this code means I don't have to do it. It's a ludicrous concept. No different than going the speed limit when there aren't police officers. So have the code ready and use it. If you do need, contact your code officials. And a lot of code officials, they're going to say, well, we don't give preemptive advice or anything like that. You don't need to. All you need is something from the code official saying, yes, we do enforce the International Building Code. Great. That's all I need. I don't need specific codes or otherwise. So you should absolutely use those codes when necessary. So there's a question from Jason. Doesn't Florida require Xactimate, just in other words? As far as I'm aware, it doesn't require Xactimate to be used, but they do require line item breakdowns for their estimates. But that doesn't mean it needs to be Xactimate. It can be other software programs. It can be line items from contractors. So that is an option. Admittedly, I don't practice. I do some work in Florida, but it isn't a ton. So I can get a more specific answer from a Florida attorney, or if there's somebody on here who does work more in Florida, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on that. Mike asks, do you have suggestions on which source for codes is best? Great question. First and foremost, find out every state and county, usually we actually even down to the city, has different building codes for their specific area. But what those codes say most of the time is that they rely on things like the International Building Code or the Residential Building Code, or whatever they're sourcing from a national or international source. The key to finding out is which one are they relating to. So do they say something like the most recent, or do they say a specific year? Find that out, and most of it can be found through the lovely world of the internet, where you can document and get copies of those. I'd also recommend, always double check, but recommend using things like ChatGPT and other AI sources. One of the questions that's going to come up that I'm going to talk about later is regarding AI in these situations, but you can always use those as well to help find the appropriate code and code documentation. All right, so other areas to document your losses. Creating an inventory of damaged business personal property. I cannot stress enough how business personal property claims are probably the #1 area of missed dollars that insureds are owed on a claim. And that usually comes down to the fact that creating inventories is a time-consuming and somewhat difficult process to do it well. If you don't have the time to properly document a loss, find someone who does. I'm not saying you need another public adjuster on the claim, but there are a ton of services out there that provide inventorying for losses. And they will go through and they'll document the inventory and photograph every single item. They will create a spreadsheet that has a link to the sourced item for where that pricing is coming from, whether it be an exact match or the best they can do. That'll be in there, and it'll give you your values for those as well. Having a properly documented inventory in a business personal property claim can be daunting, but it's not impossible. And ask yourself, would it be better for me to get 100% of the value of the contents when I put together a half-hearted list? Or if I've got to pay someone to do it, won't that be the better result for the insured? And the answer is absolutely. Getting that list comprehensively done is absolutely worth it. Coordinate with specialists. I have this kind of mentioned a few different times through these slides, and I've certainly already talked about it, but it's so important for you guys to bring in specialists on commercial losses. You guys have probably seen hundreds, if not thousands, of shingled roofs. You could do it in your sleep. But when it comes to the different flat roofing systems that are out there and the necessary proofs that are for it, and getting the core samples properly done, and doing all of this the right way, you probably want an expert to come in beyond just yourself to help with that. So bring in the engineers, bring in the roofing experts, bring in those people to support your claim and to make sure that you've got the correct position when doing all this. Mike asked another good question. If a third-party content provider estimator is used, do you know if that cost is reimbursable? Awesome question, Mike. This comes up all the time. Short version is, if the carrier does not end up bringing in their own person to do the job, it is a reimbursable cost under the policy. So it's one of the reasons that getting public adjuster fees has been such a battle and often is not compensable under the policy, because the carriers have an adjuster who's working the claim. Whether or not they're doing it the right way or not doesn't matter in the eyes of the law. What matters is they are functionally acting as an adjuster for the loss on behalf of the insured. The same thing goes for other experts. So that if you have an engineer come out, and that is a cost to the insured, that is compensable under the policy. But the fight happens when the carrier starts to bring in their own people. It's all the more reason to get yours done early, because if it can prevent the carrier from bringing somebody in on their own side, then that will only help get it covered and paid for by the insured. When it comes to who you're choosing to use for this stuff, I want you to think about something. There are certain companies who you will see on the carrier side, and you're going to know immediately, I can't trust that report. I won't drop names here. There's no reason for me to do it, but we all know they exist. Hired guns for the carriers come out all the time. And as soon as you see it, you say, I can't trust it. In the same vein, that exists from the carrier's perspective too. There are people who just don't have good reputations when it comes to presenting losses. So recognize that and try and get a true neutral. Try to get somebody who both sides will, in fact, be believable and trusted by both the carrier and the client and yourself. If you can do that, there's really no reason for them to bring in a third party. Jason asks, when it comes to these third parties, if you can elaborate with the example of being reimbursed for an industrial hygienist. Carrier often says it's not needed. All right, you can get that. First of all, you can always get permission ahead of time for the reimbursement. It would be the easiest and best way, but I recognize that's not likely. But if you go to the carrier and say, hey, you're claiming an industrial hygienist isn't necessary, but you're not believing that there is in fact soot damage behind the walls. So if you're not going to believe it, I have to bring them in. And what you should be pressing is, carrier, if I do this, if I'm going to be bringing in this industrial hygienist, and you ultimately agree with that position once you see the results of the testing, you're going to leave them no choice but to pay for it. And if they don't, then you're going to have to file suit or go to appraisal over those costs, because those are something that can be compensated under the policy. Again, if they ultimately change that position because of somebody that you've brought in, that is a cost that should be reimbursed under the policy. All right, let's keep going on these. So we've got the inventory, coordinating with specialists, depreciation, and replacement cost analysis. This is a hot topic right now. For the first time, I had a judge tell me that we have to produce in New Jersey an actual cash value estimate for the loss, that it is our responsibility to do it. Now, we're contesting that because I don't believe that that's true. I believe most insurance policies say that I have to give an ACV for contents. Absolutely my responsibility if the policy tells me, but it doesn't say it for the structure. However, I've had a lot of debates over this recently, whether or not there is an advantage for the adjuster to put together an actual cash value estimate for a loss. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So if you've got opinions, throw them into the chat. I'd love to see some debate on this. But if you put together an ACV estimate and you properly depreciate the items, and whether that depreciation is 3%, 5%, whatever it is, great. You've put forward a starting point for that ACV. And what we're trying to combat here is carriers taking extreme depreciation on losses, which I'm seeing more and more now, where carriers will come in and they'll depreciate items by 60, 70, 80, 90% that simply is not appropriate for a given item. And what your goal is to say, look, I put together an actual cash value. It has an 8.5% depreciation on this item, so that when they try to put their estimate together and want to put 90%, they know already that that's going to be a contested issue because you've put the 8.5 in there. If you give them only an RCV estimate and they come back at 90, they've got no point of measure to say, oh, how contested is this number going to be? So there can be a lot of value to adding an actual cash value and complying with that aspect of the policy, where we recognize we're only entitled to ACV until the work is done. That changes in litigation, and I will fight that to the ends of the earth. But at least during the adjustment process, they are only entitled to the ACV amount. Quick questions here, just because I want to make sure I address them from Mike. If a PE, for instance, is brought in before the carrier has an opportunity to do so, is that still reimbursable? To be clear, it's reimbursable unless they bring one in themselves. As soon as they bring in their own engineer and there becomes this contested engineer, it is not a guaranteed reimbursement under the policy. And Mike had indicated carrier adjusters like to use age regardless of condition, which is wrong. Mike, you're 100% correct. Age alone is not the only basis for depreciation. All right. So let's keep moving through these because I don't want to have you guys here too long, and I want to make sure we're done by 1. So when you're communicating on claims, these are other major pitfalls we see. And admittedly, communication, as I mentioned before, and I will mention 100 times before I die, is one of my weaknesses. I just have a lot of calls and a lot of emails that come in, but we should all be striving to fix that problem, to create a process that allows us not to have the issues. So do things like create timelines for the case. If timelines are important for your issue, for example, how long was a leak going on at your commercial property, or did you comply with the protective safeguards within time of whatever the requirements are, a timeline can do a lot to help that. So don't be afraid of doing it. Submitting sworn proofs of loss can help with that timeline and the communication issues, even if they're hostile proofs. If you don't know, a hostile proof is simply a proof of loss that wasn't requested or demanded by the carrier, but it comes with certain timelines that help move things along. Responding to RFIs and EUO prep is another big area that comes up in commercial claims. There are way more RFIs in a commercial loss than you'll ever get in a residential claim. So make sure that you are timely communicating that with your clients and getting those responses to the carriers so you are not the cause of the delay. So one of the last things you want is to be the reason this thing is taking more time. It is also, by the way, the number one complaint about public adjusters to insurance departments was a lack of communication. So keeping that line of communication open is absolutely critical, and make sure you track your policy deadlines. In commercial claims, a lot of people don't recognize, when they do mostly residential, that the suit limitation is often 2 years in a commercial claim. So residential losses in a lot of states, they're bound by the suit limitation, which is often 1 year within the policy, which means you've got to get everything done within that 1 year from the date of loss or game's over. In a commercial policy, you've got 2 years under most of them. As always, read the policy. If you're not sure, talk to an attorney so that you've got the right timelines on these things. Mike White asked a question before we dive too far into this because it involved ACV, RCV, and it's a really important question. Should the ACV be done on line items or overall? Absolutely, without question, it should be done by line item. There is no broad, I can just depreciate the entire estimate by 5% and that's good enough. So you absolutely want to have a line by line. The truth is things depreciate differently. There is no depreciation for piping for the plumbing lines or for flooring that's going to be the same as the couch that's in the property or the drywall or the paint. They're all different, so you should have different values of depreciation accordingly. All right, so keeping going through this, other pitfalls. These are issues that come up over and over again, so make sure you're doing it. I'm reiterating some of these because they are important. Incomplete and delays in documentation can cause significant problems for a loss. It can slow everything down, so just get it ahead of time. If I haven't said it enough, then that's on you because I know I have. Misunderstanding policy coverage. Guys, I get calls way more often than I think I should from professionals in this industry who ask me policy questions that you should know. The truth is, if you are a public adjuster, you should understand these policies and you should be able to read it when you go through the policy and understand what's covered and what's not. We are not lay people. We are professionals in this industry. If you don't feel like you can do that, you should really strive to get yourself educated in a way that allows you to get that information. You should be able to know off of the top of your head what items under this particular policy, once I review it, are covered and not covered. So learn that information. Big pet peeve of mine: undervaluing and overestimating a loss. I recognize a few things, guys. Insurance companies come in low. They do. There is a stigma that public adjusters come in high. The stigma exists because they do. Not all of them, by the way. There are a lot of good adjusters out there who have the right estimate from day one. But there are too many times where there is an overvaluation by one side and an undervaluation from the other. Our goal is to get to the right answer, and you should always be striving towards that. There are a bunch of negotiation aspects to this, and there's a ton of pieces of this puzzle. I get it. But your goal is always to put together the right estimate for the right dollar value and present that for the claim. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean the other side doesn't make mistakes, but that should always, always be the goal. Inadequate BI calculations. Business interruption claims are really, really complex. I'm actually going to be doing my next talk, I think it's the next one, entirely on business interruption, business income claims. Those BI claims are complicated. They involve experts, but you need to make sure you're getting the proper calculation. It is not good enough just to give a profit and loss statement to the carrier and say, this is my proofs for BI. You're going to need more, and there's going to be other aspects of it when it comes to continuing operation expenses and other extra expenses from relocating. There's so many pieces to that puzzle. You need to make sure you put it together appropriately, generally with the use of an expert, to make sure the carrier pays it appropriately. Lack of third-party expert reports. I'm not going to belabor this anymore, guys. Get third-party experts. Failing to track your extra expense claims appropriately. You should be having a sit down with your clients and saying, hey, any expenses that get associated with this loss or things that you've got to pay for that you didn't have to pay for before, track all of it, every penny, and document it. A cash exchange won't be good enough, so get me proofs. Yes, by the way, cash exchanges are still paid for by a policy, but it's going to be a fight, so get your proofs of payment for those things. So yeah, by the way, I'm noticing how much my head is covering text on the bottom right. So I either need to create these slides accordingly or figure out that side-by-side comparison, because that's simply just, that's not working well. All right, other things. Missing notifications or proof of loss deadlines. Know your policy deadlines, guys. There are policies with specific proof of loss timelines that must be complied with. Number one being flood claims. So if you have a loss, residential or commercial, make sure you're complying with those deadlines accordingly. We talked about the poor communication when it comes to these, and not preparing for appraisal and litigation is the last one on this slide. Guys, you should prepare every case, every single claim, as if you're going to be sitting in a courtroom in front of a judge and a jury and need to prove it. And it's not because every case should go to litigation. They shouldn't. In a perfect world, actually, no claims should go to litigation, but I can say that confidently because I know it's just not realistic. But if you prepare every file as if it's going to be in front of a judge and in front of a jury and you need your proofs, you will get better results for your clients every time. And I can say that so confidently because I can see the difference. One of the advantages I have is that I see the public adjusters that are good, I see the public adjusters that are just average, and I see the ones that are bad. And one thing that I can tell you across the board is there's so much difference just in how you prepare and document your claim file that makes a big, big change for these claims. So if you recognize, hey, I've got a carrier email that's saying that this is a long-term leak, and all I've got is me saying, no, it isn't. That's not going to be good enough for a judge and a jury. I need to prove it. So I need to show you why the damages aren't in fact evidence of long-term, because mold starts within 24 to 48 hours. And the mold here is of a certain type because I got the EMSL testing done on it, and it grows this quickly. So that alone isn't good enough for you to say it was a long-term loss. The other key to this, by the way, is always putting the ball in their court and saying, hey, what are the proofs that it is a long-term loss, or it is, there is no storm-created opening on the roof to allow for the damages to the interior. So guys, always be thinking about how would this be presented to a third party, whether it be litigation or appraisal, and build your claims accordingly. All right, here are some of the questions that we got through when you guys register for these. If other ones come up, please let me know. I'd love to have them. And I do see actually popping back here from Mike, 2 questions from Mike. I think him and Jason are just competing for who can use the chat the most, but I absolutely love it, so keep them coming. Mike says, do you have BI forensic CPAs to recommend for BI claims? Absolutely. There's a few that I've worked with, and I'm happy to suggest those. Some of them are local guys for you, Mike, who I know is close by, and others are in national. They'll literally go everywhere. One of the nice things about BI claims, you don't need to do a site visit. So you can have a BI expert who lives in California do your claim in New York, and there's no extra expense because it's just a paperwork game. They can do it from anywhere. So find the best guys. You can use them for pretty much anywhere. Mike, that was just a suggestion. From Drew, Tony, do you work in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Tennessee? So I do have local counsel that gets me in to all three of those states. So if you need work in those, I'm happy to help. I'm not actually licensed there, but through pro hawking, I can go almost anywhere given the amount of the loss. All right. So some of the questions that came in beforehand, and again, keep them coming. How can I get their expert reports they rely on to deny/limit the claim in Texas? Well, luckily, my question is not limited just to Texas. It'll work everywhere. Number one, carriers generally, and unfortunately, are not required to provide you the reports that are the basis of their denial. It's wrong. It absolutely should be required. If you're going to rely on an engineer to deny my claim, there's zero reason you should be allowed to hold that back. One of the nice things is that a lot of insurance departments agree with me. So, for example, we've got good relationships with the insurance departments in a bunch of different states, and I've talked to them. And they say, look, if we get a complaint from somebody that says, hey, they've provided a basis of a denial from an engineer report, and they refuse to give it to us, almost every time we'll ask the carrier, why won't you just give it to them? And most of the time, that gets the carrier to turn it over. So you can use those complaints to the department in some states to get them to turn over those reports. And the idea being, hey, you might be right, carrier. You might have an engineer report that proves what I'm saying wrong, but we need to explain that to the client. We need them to understand your position. So can you provide it to me for that reason, to make sure we're all on the same page? And again, with the departments on our backing us up about this, they often will turn those reports over. But that doesn't mean they have to or that they will. So if you've got a carrier who simply won't do it, there's often no option other than through litigation to get them to turn it over. The nice thing is I can get any document I want once I file suit, but to get it preemptively, there's not always a great answer to getting you to do it other than trying to put pressure through that insurance department or complaints from the carrier, or from the client to the carrier. How to get past POs, which are preliminary objections, when the carrier has not turned over discovery yet. It's rare that I get a question from another attorney, but I always welcome them. Actually, in some degrees easier because it's something I deal with all the time. So with POs, you can often get through those by either simply amending the complaint to address the issue. And when you amend it, you simply have lines in there like to the best of your information and belief, X, Y, and Z are true. The other thing that you can do is request discovery on those specific issues. So a lot of attorneys don't recognize there are things like pre-complaint discovery, and you can actually motion the court for that discovery before they rule on those POs so that you can ultimately get those documents from them. What I do in those situations is file the amended complaint to kick the can down the road and then seek leave for early discovery on those issues, which the court is usually on board with doing. This was a long one, but a good one nonetheless. Given the complexities of documenting and presenting commercial claims, especially when policies vary so much across carriers, are you using or aware of any AI tools that can assist in automating claim analysis and structuring? For example, tools that can scan a potential claim and flag coverage strengths or weaknesses based on the language of major carriers. Our firm is currently in the midst of developing something along these lines, and if it goes well, we expect it to be monetizable and drive a significant uptick in client acquisition. All right, a lot of information in there. Actually, and I don't put who asks these questions because this is in no means meant to be a marketing tool for people. But the idea is an important one, and it's the use of AI for these for claims adjustment. AI is incredible. It's doing amazing things, and it really is just getting better and better. But what is happening is either people are trusting it too much and getting bad results, or not using the appropriate tools when they need. You can have AI, even things as simple as ChatGPT, do a policy analysis. You can have it go through an expert report and say, hey, what are the weaknesses or discrepancies within this expert report that we should try to address? And it can give you that breakdown. And it's as simple as using ChatGPT, uploading the document and asking the right question. I could probably, and if people ask for it, sorry, Gabby threw in the Tony's favorite topic. For those who don't know, Gabby Beers is an associate with my office, absolutely amazing attorney. And if you ever can't reach me, she's much better at reaching out to people. So, but long story short, you can absolutely use AI, and I should probably do an entire webinar on it. But things like ChatGPT and other AI softwares can go a long way to helping you analyze your documents. In addition, AI can also help you with the claim process itself. So if you put into Xactimate, hey, I've got a commercial loss. I'm sorry, I said Xactimate. Into ChatGPT, I've got a commercial roofing claim that I've got. Can you give me a checklist of all of the inspection things that we should do, and any reports that we should expect to get? It'll spit that out for you, and it does a really good job at helping you through that process. It should always be double checked. You should always, always, always go through it and confirm the information as accurate, because it will make stuff up, and it'll make cases up. It'll just make up information. So make sure you are double checking that. But it is great for document analysis, document drafting, drafting letters, things like that. All right, commercial roof core samples, do's, don'ts, best practices. I loved this question because core samples can change the game when it comes to a commercial roofing system. Hopefully you've stuck around long enough. Obviously, if you're still here, I just feel bad for the people who have signed off, because core samples make a big difference. And the reason core samples are so valuable is because, like any building materials, when they are initially put on, things can get wet. Your sheathing can get wet. Your any of the base for your roofing, it can all get wet, and it can dry out because it's open to the air and all is well with the world. But what happens when you have a storm that comes through that creates openings in your roof, and water gets underneath and into that roofing membrane, and it gets wet? It's not drying out. It doesn't happen because it's just locked within there, and it will start to deteriorate, rot away, and cause other problems to your roofing membrane and the subsurfaces that are underneath that main roofing surface, whether it be TPO or modified bitumen or any of the other kinds. So when you take those core samples, you want to do a few things. Number one, document the entire process. If you could, you should be videotaping every core sample as they are pulled, so that it is a live view of exactly what is happening. Number two, you want to create a roofing map for where those core samples are taken. So whether you use Eagle View or your own drone or otherwise, you should have, as part of your core sample process, that overview with spots numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that associate with your core sample. And then following that document, a chart of the result from that core sample. So you've got your overview, and then you've got your core sample map, and then you've got core sample number 1. Here's the photograph from it, a link to the video, and the findings from that core sample. That is absolutely your best bet to a method for taking these core samples. And what you're looking for is you're looking for moisture contained within those core samples and the material that makes up the roof. Both of those are critical pieces of information, because the material will dictate what repairs are ultimately necessary. And of course, the moisture within it will determine what is indeed needed for that roof. So if you haven't done core samples yourself, work with a roofing company or a contractor who has, because you want to make sure those are done and then obviously patched appropriately to make sure that things aren't getting worse. How to make insurance companies play by their own policy rules. What do you do when they add extra contractual requirements? Oh, you know what? I actually think this was from the last webinar, and I forgot to take this slide off. So if you want the answer to that one, I suggest going back and watching it in the last meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I've made it with a whopping 3 minutes to spare. I always thank you guys for hopping on these, watching them later, whatever the case may be. Hopefully you find them valuable. The next webinar, like I said, is going to be on the specifically business income and extra expense coverage. We're going to talk about the policy language itself, how to build those claims, and what they look like when they're done the right way, so that you can make sure you're getting all those coverages afforded to your clients. You've got my personal information here. If you guys need anything, please let me know. Reach out anytime. If you have webinars you want to see, I'm always happy to hear that too. And we will see what we can do to fix this this information or this issue with my little head, which, by the way, is never little considering how large this noggin is, but blocking some of the screen. So thank you guys so much, and have a great day and wonderful weekend. Take care.